In the last 2 years, I spent a lot of time with miners. I spent a lot of time in the mines, thousands of feet below the surface, spent time at the coal terminals, watching the trains getting loaded and ships getting loaded, all of that. And even made a trip to Mongolia to see one of the largest surface mining metallurgical coal operations, which was spectacular. That was a great trip. And I feel like last couple of years I've been drinking from a fire hydrant. And it's still a lot to learn, but it's been great. So if you look at a business like Warrior, I've visited them a few times, and a wonderful, actually truly exceptional management team. Coal miners are just the best people. They feed you well, and they are what you see is what you get. It's just awesome. And anyway, so in the case of Warrior, their mines are some of the best metallurgical coal mines in North America. They have amongst the lowest cost of production. They have two big advantages. So their mines are in Alabama, Southern Appalachia. Okay. And their mines are not that far away from the port. Coal is a commodity that is very expensive to transport because it's very bulky. You don't get paid much per ton, and the transport cost per ton can be very high. So logistics with coal becomes extremely important in order to, have a business that can actually make money. And Warrior does something known as long wall mining. There are two ways to do it. You can ask Google about this, long wall mining versus room and pillar mining. Long wall mining is basically the most efficient way to have an underground coal mine, where you basically have these huge blocks of coal and you're, having a shear go end to end, and it's already automated. So Warrior's cost of production for very high quality metallurgical coal, and metallurgical coal is only available in like half a dozen countries around the world in any kind of sizable quantity to be exported. So they produce very high quality coal. They produce it at a very low cost, and they've got rivers that can take them to the port, which is they can barge the coal down, and they've also got multiple railroads. Whereas some of the other miners, they basically got one railroad servicing them, and it's the railroad that makes all the money because they've got a monopoly on the transport. So in effect, when you look at Burlington Northern, which Berkshire bought, one of the first trips Buffett, Munger, and Gates made after they bought Burlington Northern is they went to the Powder River Basin in Wyoming, because that's where Burlington Northern made so much money with transporting coal. And these guys went and wanted to take a look at that facility because it was so they didn't own the coal mines, but they basically owned the coal mines because they were the only toll bridge to get your coal anywhere you wanted it to go. And so basically, Warrior is low-cost producer, cheap transport to the port. Once you get to the port, then coal is easy to transport anywhere in the world. So pretty much in almost any environment you can imagine, Warrior will be making money because they're so low on the cost curve. So basically, you have a debt-free business that is extremely unlikely to ever have a money-losing year. And so, Warrior is like, 2 to 3 billion market cap, maybe 2.5 billion or something. Their reserves are going to go for 40, 50 years. They're going to have some years when they're going to produce 1 or 2 billion in cash flow. And they're going to be some years that they'll produce 500 million in cash flow. And there's some years that they produce 300 million. So if you're paying 2.5 billion for a business, and those are the numbers, where do I sign? And I don't get that with the MagSep. I don't get a 3 trillion market cap with 1 trillion cash flow ever coming out in a single year.
So one question I have, a lot of these situations, like this situation you're describing from a valuation standpoint, if you're correct about the fact that, they could potentially do $1 billion in free cash in a given year.
It's not even theoretical. They've done it in the past.
They've done it in the past, right? Yeah. It seems like it begs the question, like, well, why on earth is this stock trading where it is? I was reading,
it's a 4-lettered word.
Is it that simple?
You're not allowed to utter the 4-lettered word.
So here's another point. I was reading this conference call transcript on AlphaSense where there was some expert who was saying that people confuse metallurgical coal with thermal coal.
Yeah. So basically, there's a lot of difference between thermal and metallurgical coal. Thermal coal is available across the globe in a gazillion places at various grades, low grade, high grade, whatever, right? The extremely high grades of thermal coal kind of border on being usable for metallurgical uses. But the extremely high grades are very rare. Metallurgical coal sits in its own universe. And this is one of the reasons why everything gets painted with a broad brushstroke. So you really have to separate thermal coal from metallurgical coal. We will not have a civilization without iron and steel. And we cannot produce enough iron and steel just by recycling the existing iron and steel. So the only way you would not use metallurgical coal in terms of all the known processes of how to produce iron and steel would be to recycle steel. The problem with recycling steel is places like India and China, et cetera, do not have enough scrap steel to take care of what their needs are. So usually it's advanced economies like the US or Japan, which have a lot of recycling of steel going on. In the United States, we scrap a lot of cars. We have 15 to 17 million cars a year, new cars being sold, and probably a somewhat similar number being scrapped. And there's a very efficient mechanism to get that scrap steel. Most of it gets exported to China, et cetera. But we don't have enough scrap steel. And also you cannot produce the highest grades of steel by using scrap. So basically, at the end of the day, places like India or Indonesia or Vietnam or eventually Africa and so on have huge appetites for iron and steel that cannot be fulfilled by recycling your way through it. So 50 years from now, we will still be burning metallurgical coal to produce iron and steel.